What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Hey, what's going on? Yo, it's your boy Troy. It's your boy Sean, and you are tapped in, tapped in, tapped in. Look, I hope we got some tapped in, tapped in. So hope we got some new viewers. This week, we got some really good topics that we want to touch on. Again, we appreciate everybody that's coming to be a part of this movement that we got going on. Where we just sharing our thoughts and ideas. That's a little bit different than what you might hear on an everyday basis. So, Troy.
Yeah, well, we appreciate everybody that's tapping in with us. Keep tapping in. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Um, we appreciate it, and I'm glad y'all here with us, man. So we're gonna dive right in and just get the chopping it up, man.
One other thing. So for everybody who's watching right now, we only need 5 more followers on Facebook for us to be able to, when our time is up, to be able to go live. So if you're watching this and you haven't followed us on Facebook, please go over there and follow us on Facebook. Also subscribe to this so that when we go live, you see it. Again, we thank each and every one of you people that's following us and subscribing to this to this movement. And because we doing it because we want to be of help to whoever might stumble across one of our videos. Maybe we can give them a little bit of different insight about how to handle a situation, a tough situation, or an easy situation, or just transitioning in life. So we just want to be able to be that sounding board just for another thought for you to be able to process and think about and think of it as that might be an option for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we all know life sometimes life forget life and when it does, I mean you guys can help us too. We can chime in and we can talk through some things together. And sometimes a healthy conversation is all it takes. So we're here for it.
That's right. What's up?
Yeah.
So what we got going on, man? What's going on with you this week? Where you want to jump off at?
Man, I'm trying to jump off with where fall come go. It went straight to winter. That's why I'm jumping off.
Yeah. No, man. It was. I mean, what we had like a streak of 80, and she went straight to 60.
Straight to it.
Straight to 60, and then at night I think it was getting down to like 50.
The big question is your heat on.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm toughing it out, man.
Now, because in some parts of the house, like what I mean, is cooler than the other. So like my daughter's, their bedroom is always cool, right?
Mhm.
So when they get cool, it really get cool in there. So for the sake of them, we got one of those nest things. So if it dropped below a certain degree,
Okay, she automatically.
it automatically go to heat, and then if it get too hot in there, it'll go to the AC. So I mean, that helped out with the electric bill too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm not saying this does not come from me, man, but I was just saying on Facebook, and the Facebook community spoke, and they said if you heat on, man, now you soft.
I'm solved.
You soft.
I'm solved then.
I get it.
Yeah, I want to be comfortable.
I know that's right. I know
I
that's
work hard to be able to pay the bills, and if I walk in the house and it feel cool in there to me, I'm not trying to put on some sweatpants and tube socks and sweatshirt. No.
Yeah, we're not doing that bad, y'all. We're not doing that bad. But yeah, man. Man, football week, man. Definitely got to touch on that, man. My boys got a W. Wasn't a pretty one, but hey, we take it.
Hey, I can't complain with what we're doing right now. I mean, we started off 0-2, but that train looked real nice moving. Looked like we figured out how to utilize Derrick Henry. Lamar back there. He managing the game. He run only when he has to, or it's a play called for it. Passing. Passing the ball efficiently,
Yeah.
spreading the ball out to multiple receivers, and then when it's time to close out the game, you got Derrick Henry in the backfield. And he running up against you in the fourth quarter. It's not a safety, it's not a corner. There ain't too many defensive ends that want to,
upright. Could nobody could sit him. Yeah, he's tough. He's tough. I enjoy seeing him run too. I wish my quarterback man would distribute the ball a little bit more. We have the receivers for it. I mean, we got the person now. We're just not using it.
But Ain't Devontae?
And I think we got everybody back this week.
Y'all had him back this last year.
Yeah, we had everybody back this week. So, but we just didn't incorporate everybody, get everybody moving. I don't even think we ran Saquon enough, man. It's like,
Yeah, y'all got
y'all
got him back.
we got him back. We got everything we need. So we need to start scoring, man. I mean, we have to play to score the ball. I didn't like what I saw, but we managed to, win. So, yeah.
So I got a question for you. Is I mean, from being a Philly fan, I mean, y'all got y'all championship, some years ago, but like it's like Jalen, like he started off, guns blazing. Do you think, and even like with the coach, I mean, he came in and he was coaching well, but is Philly that type of city where like the good is good, but when it get bad, it's just like they tell you how they really feel, and you got to be able to have that thick skin to be able to be like they don't really mean it, and they be like, yeah, we do, until y'all start winning again. It seemed like it wear good coaches down, and it can wear down some good players as well.
It's part of the deal. That's how I feel. Like I feel like honestly, and I'm one of those. I'm not one of those fans, but I watch football with a lot of those fans, and I'm one. Excuse me. I like to watch the game and watch it, and I'm optimistic. I'm like, okay, it's not over until it's over.
Right.
But you got some fans that expect to see you come out there and dominate, and when they're not saying that, man, it's like we had years of not competing at that high level, and after you get a Super Bowl, it's like you think it's only up from there. So
Right.
it's almost like an emotional roller coaster, man. And the Philly fans, they're not having it. I mean, we tear the city up when we win, so if we lose it,
Right.
but yeah, man, I think but for the players and the coaches, I think they expect that because at the end of the day, they're gonna go out there, they're gonna do a job, win or lose, they're gonna get paid. So
Right.
they're used to it.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, it's a little bit different. I mean, we didn't have the same. And what we got, I think second longest tenured coach in the league. I think it's him and Tom.
Tomlin.
Yeah, him and Tom. I think been at their coaching spots the longest out of anybody who's in the league right now. So, I mean, we've had that, and we've had the same kind of makeup. Like it's always been kind of defense 1st. It hadn't been until Lamar got there that the folk, well, maybe when Flacco was there, I mean, it kind of, we got more offensively minded, but you figure that first championship we won, I mean, it's Trent Dilfer, he was just there to manage the game. You know what I mean? He wasn't there to really make big plays. It's like, look, don't turn the ball over. You know what I mean? Convert on third downs, and we'll take care of the rest.
How much do you contribute to coaching, and how much do you contribute to just having the personnel and having the staff? I mean,
so I think like for me with Baltimore, because that's what we're talking about. I think Baltimore is just a culture.
okay.
You know what I mean? I think that culture of defense goes back to Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. You know what I mean? Like they built the culture of you not we the best defense in the league. You know what I mean? And if we not, you gotta show us that we not. Right. And that toughness in the way that they came into the game, it's just like, look, if you score us 7 points, we gonna win this game. I mean, that was just their mentality. And I heard him talk on the podcast. I can't remember, but it was a ridiculous amount of points, a low amount of points that team scored on them the whole year when they won. I think it was when they played San Francisco, his last year when they played them in the championship. But it was like a run where I think teams only had scored a combined 15 points against that defense.
Wow.
Like going into the playoffs. So I mean, I think with them, it's a culture. Right now, I think I mean, with the identity, with Lamar being so dynamic, I think that has taken up some of that space. But our defense is still strong. It's like when I'm trying to think who the last person that left. Like when we lost Queen last year, I was like, man, who's gonna step up? But I'd already noticed Hamilton.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean he's a stud back there, man. You know what I mean? And then we fit, and everybody is next man up. You know what I mean? They kind of come with that same mentality. And then we got an offense that kind of feel the same way. Like we got the best offense. So
Okay.
I feel good about where we at.
Okay. You feel like a Super Bowl.
Man, it looked like how we going, man.
Yeah.
Hey, we got one big test.
Yeah.
If we can pass that test, I think we can get there.
Okay. And what's that test?
Kansas City.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's the thorn in your side.
Yeah, we gotta get through them.
That's it.
And if they just happen not to be there, when it's
Okay.
when it's championship time, I mean that's just gonna be that much harder for everybody else.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
So I mean we had a couple things that we talked about a little bit during the week, man. And I mean, so I'm gonna let you kind of tell me what your thought process behind it was.
Okay.
And it was about adults giving adults giving advice to older kids.
Okay. Yeah. What I was thinking when my thought process was unsolicited advice,
Right.
because we have kids, and you've parented these kids for their whole life, and now they're out on their own. And sometimes when they're on their own, you're forced to watch from the sideline, and not all the time do they come to you and say, "Hey, I want your opinion on this, that, and the third." But sometimes, just in a conversation, or you watch some of their movement, and the parent in you and the protector in you, you want to jump right in and say, "Hey, if I were you, I wouldn't."
And now you talking about your own personal kids?
I'm talking about personal kids and just adult kids, and period, because we had to figure some things out. But sometimes it's hard watching them fumble through. And some areas, I mean, some areas they just see stuff from a different perspective. But I was just wondering, like, how do the majority of people feel? Like, do you feel like it's your right to just jump in and tell your kids, if you see something, adult kids, if you see something that could possibly help or harm them, do you just take that initiative and speak on it, or do you wait until they come to you with an issue or wanting your opinion?
So for me, I would say I'm not gonna say I offer advice. Yeah, I guess I probably do. So like I really try to guide. So like if I'm having a conversation, just like last night, I was having a conversation with my daughter, and she was frustrated about the school, and wondering if she had made the right decision with the major that she picked. But the way she was feeling was based off of what had happened. I think it was that day or the day before,
Mhm.
that she felt like she didn't know as much as she thought she should.
Right.
Right. And so I'm listening to that frustration. And so as a parent at that point in time, I want to give her a different perspective, a different way to look at it. Now, am I trying to tell her what to do? No, but I'm trying to give her a different perspective so that she doesn't hold herself, uh, that she doesn't put too much into that, right? And it makes her make a decision based off of emotion, which that emotion tomorrow when you wake up, you might not even feel that way,
Mhm.
right? So let's not make a decision off of that. Let's, you tell me how you feel, and then you have advisors, right, that have had students in this particular field
Mhm.
that have come to them time and time again, feeling that same exact way, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think it's in your best interest for you to just have a conversation with them, because maybe you're being too hard on yourself about what you should and what you shouldn't know. And they might say, well, 90% of the kids aren't able to do that at this point in time. And it's like, man, I was holding myself to this such a high standard. Now you taking some of the pressure off.
Okay. In that situation, I mean, I see it, but I've seen where it's backfired, where sometimes we all talk and we express ourselves, express what we're feeling,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying it invalid. It makes it invalid what it's feeling sometimes when you
Mhm.
offer your opinion. Sometimes they just want to vent and put
Mm-hmm.
it out there, and I had to find that fine line, because I can always jump in the sun if it was me. If Well, it's not me,
Right.
and sometimes that can close the lines of communication, because I don't feel like hearing Dad tell me
Right.
what he would do with this.
Right.
So it's to a point now, and I'm sure a lot of parents go through this where you have to kind of watch them maneuver, and then when they come to you, you can say, okay. And I said that based off of, I know I'm gonna tell a quick story here. When I first got married, and I was young, I was 19, 20 years old, and I have a cousin, man, I love him dearly, and he was really instrumental in my growth. But he would come over to the house, and when he come over to the house, he would ask my wife all types of questions. He doing this, and he would come in on like some father type stuff. But I'm like, yo, I'm a grown man now. You can't come in my house.
Right. That's different.
And I had to pull him to the side, and it was hard for me to do that because, like I said, this guy was always there for me. I said, listen, I'm a grown man now. I'm a fan. This is my family.
Right.
You can't keep coming in here stirring up stuff,
Right.
opinions.
Yeah.
And I had to, set that boundary. And God knows he's never crossed it again. He's a funny guy, but I mean, so knowing how I felt at that time, that's how I tried to be with my kids, and that's even with my daughter. And it's harder when you have a daughter because you always want to make sure you have the answers for it. It's just like for your daughter, you want to have the answers, but even there's times where you just have to fall back and listen and say, you know what? Sometimes we may not be the person to advise them in that situation, even though it's hard not to. But sometimes it's easier for them to hear it from a trusted, advisor, whoever that may be.
Right.
I mean, my daughter, she's blessed with a great godmom. Her and mom are super tight, but sometimes the parents are not going to be the ones to actually reach the kid at the time.
Yeah, for sure. And that goes back to the conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago. It might even been last week about, just, for me, it's just praying that they have somebody, what I mean, outside of me or the mom, or even a lot of my kids go to their aunt, but always having somebody who aligns with the same thing that we align with, and have their best interests at hand, that come into their life to be able to help and guide them in that right way. I say for me, just because, so like with my kids, I would say it's different because like my younger kids, they'll tell you, um and even probably my oldest, like a lot of times I try to use things that they're going through, and put an analogy to it to try to teach a lesson, right?
Right.
And it maybe it was a couple months ago. It's like, my son was like, "Dang, like you're always trying to teach us lessons." That's like, because I want you to learn. You know what I mean? I want you to learn. But there's also an importance in letting your kids fail and make mistakes. So the other end of the spectrum is, with my youngest, I'm close enough to when she started learning how to walk and how much she fell down, and that process, and you have to let that happen,
Right.
because I think God allows that to happen in our lives too, like where
Exactly.
we fail, we go through the same thing over and over again. It's just like, okay, well, that's because I don't want you to do that, but you can't step in and just say it, but you have to make that choice and that decision, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, for me, it's different with I would say more of the life decisions, not relationship or nothing like that, but like things that I know, decisions that they can make that'll make life easier for them if they make some of those decisions now and develop a pattern of making those type of decisions. It's going to make life a lot easier. Just the same way as if you make a lot of poor decisions now, it adds up to be a much harder life for you, right? If you in high school, and let's just say you bought some drugs into the school or something like that. Now all of a sudden, now you in the system, right? And now if you come from a family that doesn't have any means, now you're relying on public defender or something like that to get you out of this, which is probably not going to happen. So now you got this, whatever it is, stuck to you, and you haven't even got out of school yet.
Paper trail. You're
Yeah,
calling that paper
yeah,
trail.
you call it that paper trail. So, like, and those things is different. What I mean, it's a little bit different. But I also approach with other people's kids. It's not until they ask,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I feel like at that point in time, they really are looking for something different or a different perspective, and that's kind of when I interject. Or if it's in a conversation, or we having a conversation, and a question is, is asked that leads me to think that okay, they might want a little bit of guidance on this particular issue. Then I'll try to guide it, but I don't just try to go in and tell hear somebody talking and just jump in like, oh no, you shouldn't do this.
I'm big on, and you'll hear me say this a lot over a lot of our conversations. I'm big on earning the right, earning the right. That's just like, even me personally, it's a lot of people know of me, but not a lot of people know me.
Right.
And to do that, you have to earn a right. So once you earn that right and you're in my inner circle, you have a right to come to me and maybe ask me some personal things or give some advice.
Right.
But if you haven't earned that right, then you can't come to me and just you can, but I'm not gonna take it seriously. And I think that's how it is with the younger generation too. When you approach them, where have I seen you at? When have we ever talked? I mean, have you seen me uptown a few times? Did you offer me a ride? Did you do this? Like,
Right.
have you earned the right to, even be giving me advice? So I'm big on that. But even in your own kids, you fed them, you clothed them, you raised them. I think you have that right, but I think they also have a right to have their own individuality and have their own perspective. And like I say, it's hard because sometimes their perspective don't line up with yours.
Right.
I listen to young people talking like, but they're more non-traditional than what we are.
Right.
See, we had a traditional way of doing things.
Right.
Now it's a little more progressive. They're looking at it, and I think you touched on this maybe a week or two ago. Um, they're looking at people all across the world with social media. You see people doing it at a faster rate, speed. You don't see none of the in between. You see, okay, last week I was here, this week I'm in the penthouse,
Right.
and that's what they're shooting for. And so they're skipping a lot of steps in between. And you want to say, hey, you're gonna have to come back and address this. But sometimes it's good to just fall back and let them navigate.
Right. Yeah, it is a tough line, on which side to be on. But I think as long as whatever that decision you decide to make comes from a good-hearted place, right?
Yeah.
That you're really looking for the best interest, not this is what I should have done, so I'm gonna tell you to do that.
Mhm.
It can't come from that. It's got to come from a place like of wisdom. Because some people, they get older, but they don't get wiser, right?
Well,
And I don't have to learn. I don't have to have a lesson that I personally learned. It's just from my observation of for decisions that I've seen other people make. And I can see how one person made a decision one way and it turned out this way, and one person made a decision another way and it turned out, the total opposite. Like I can visually see that and say, okay, well, it's more likely that you're probably going to go be better off if you follow this path over here. And so that's what like as far as wisdom goes, that's what I, rely on.
God. Like I said, it has to come from a place of caring, because there's a lot of bitterness too. You have households where families have parted,
Mhm.
and you might have a single mom who feels a certain way about the father.
Mhm.
So when everything she tells her son is dictated off of how her relationship with the father, not the father's relationship with his child,
Mhm.
but how
Her relationship.
her relationships are, oh, he's no good, you ain't good. So anything that resembles his father,
Mhm.
she's going to have an opinion, it's going to be negative. And I think that's not from a place of care. We have to be careful as parents, the ones that's in that situation, not to let that transfer over. You know what I mean? So with that being said, what do you think when you're coming from a two-parent household?
Mhm.
And not all marriages, relationships are healthy. Some of them are toxic.
Mhm.
But do you feel that it's more helpful or harmful to a child for that relationship to stay and work on the relationship, or to divorce?
Right. So that's a good question. Because I think it depends on how. It's a couple of different factors. I think it depends on how toxic the relationship is,
Mhm.
right? Um, if it's a really volatile and toxic relationship, and neither party's happy, you're not hiding anything. The kids know. Kids know more than what we think they know anyway. They can sense it, and so they see the disconnect. They see the lack of the lack of communication.
Mhm.
They see the lack of empathy towards one another, um, and and they can sense that you're there, but you're not working together,
Mhm.
right? And then some of that other what you just said starts to come into it because you're not having those conversations. The husband and wife. The kids realize, okay, well, if I want this, I'm gonna go to mom.
Oh
If I
yeah.
want this, I'm gonna
Mhm.
go to dad.
Mhm.
And then now it's just like, okay, well, then it becomes a power structure between the two of you in the house. Um, that then there's even more friction there. And then neither one of you are happy, right?
Mhm.
And so to me, if it's really toxic in the long term, you may think that it is better to stay, but I honestly think that it would be, in the short term where it's hard, it's difficult, you're splitting up, you're trying to figure out what to do with the kids. I think in the short term, it can be, kind of traumatic. But after that separation happens, and then you begin to, or the husband begins to rebuild, and the wife begins to rebuild and get in a healthy space, and then are able to actually co-parent and communicate with each other.
Mhm.
I think it becomes a healthier environment for the kids, actually.
It can be. It can be. Also, uh, it could be the first kid's first lesson in abandoning commitment.
Right.
It could. I mean, it depends. And like you said, it depends on how toxic the situation is because some of the things you name are repairable.
Right.
And I think it would benefit the kids to see that transparency, say, okay, mom and dad are human.
Mhm.
They both stress, they're not getting along this period of time. But if the parents could commit to maybe counseling or committing to say, you know what, I want to show our kids that we can reconcile, we can get past obstacles because everything, marriage is work.
Right.
Relationships is work.
Right.
It's a lot of compromising. And if the kid doesn't see that, then that could be a lifelong turnover of relationship after relationship after relationship because when it gets tough, just abandon it, just scrap it.
Right. And it's crazy because like I think it's time as well. Because you mentioned, like, if you go into counseling and you've been trying to work at it, let's say 2, 3, 4 years,
Mhm.
and it's just not it ain't working for whatever reason.
Mhm.
The two of you just can't find that place where you're both working at it at the same time, and as hard and as vigorous as it needs to be in order for you to get through it, right?
Uh-huh.
um it's it takes a toll on you mentally, it takes a toll on you physically. I mean, it takes a toll on the kids mentally.
Mhm.
It does. And even being in that environment can warp what their expectation of a healthy marriage and relationship is as
Mhm.
well. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because if you think about it, it's like, okay, would I want my child to be living through the same thing that I'm living through right
Mhm.
now,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Um, and I think if you looked at it in that way, not you, but I'm just saying, if people were looking at it that way, I think sometimes they would make a different decision than to stay. And it's hard for me to even navigate through that question because fortunately I hadn't
Mhm.
been in that space. Um, but to know that the sole responsibility, is, as being a is first being a husband, but then being a father to your children,
Mhm.
and knowing that, okay, I'm not making the mark as with being a husband at this point in time, now my next role is to be the best father that I can be.
Yeah.
And what decisions do I need to make in order to fulfill that role, right?
Yeah. And that's the most important thing for because kids didn't ask to be here or in that situation. So it's very important to dig deep and be mature in those situations, even though you don't see it a lot. Depending on the age of the children, they can almost become bargaining chips. And, and it's so sad because you see it all the time. You see, relationships that don't work out. And it's like one side of the family suffers, whether it's the dad's family, whether it's hard for like the kids to maintain that type of normalcy and still be close with the whole family. It's almost like it's a divide, an instant divide. And I mean, it's hard on kids. I think, I'm not going to say it's harder on girls.
Mhm.
But me personally, I could never imagine having a daughter that has daddy issues because of something that I caused,
Right.
early on, just being toxic. That's why I always try to be the best man I could be, even in the household. Except we're not perfect.
Right.
So, there's some things that I've demonstrated over the years that I have to go back and say, hey, this ain't really how you handle your situation. You should have never, nobody should ever raise their voice like this or do that. Because, like I said, we're human.
Right.
But those are teachable moments too. And when you can correct that behavior and they see you over a period of time, say, okay, this is how it's supposed to be done. I think it's healthy for them because we have to be transparent because none of it comes with a manual.
Right. So, I mean, staying in the vein of who and what we are. So, like, if there's somebody who's in that situation right now that's watching this, right,
Uh-huh.
and they at that place, like where they don't know, whether whether they should separate or divorce or stay in it. What is some advice from where you are and how you were able to navigate through, um, any kind of difficult past or something like that you might have had to be able to say, look, there's more to this than this moment right now.
My biggest piece of advice, and I would tell anybody, be honest. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with your family. And when I say be honest, when you start to look at yourself and say, okay, what have I contributed to this for us to be in this situation? And then you got to ask yourself, have I gave 100%?
Mhm.
Because you can't expect for this thing to go right and you're half here, half with the homies, half, everybody's influencing your situation. Sometimes you have to lock in because this is my life. I have to lock in and I have to say, hey, I have to do this for me. So I had to eliminate the outside noise and just give it 6 months of total concentration. And if you can honestly say, I gave everything and I was 100% devoted and focused, and the results are still the same, you're still in the same situation, then you can honestly say, you know what, I tried.
Mhm.
But a lot of people can't say that they really tried because of some selfishness involved.
Right. Yeah. So for me, I would say probably one of the most important things is realizing that relationships are like people. Like there's no two people that's alike, right? And there's no relationships that are alike, And so when you're looking at what your examples or role models, because like growing up, I had my mom and my dad, but there were certain people that I seen in the community as well that that looked like they had you know the type of marriage that I wanted. And when I say look like it, the way that the wife, treated or acted towards the husband, the way the husband, reciprocated that to the wife or honored his wife. And so, but I didn't know what was going on in their relationship.
Right.
I guess I was seeing the highlights,
Mhm.
right? But the other thing is which is probably contradictory to what advice most people would give. But I would say to figure it out yourselves, right? Not go, not talk to a whole bunch of people about
Eliminate
what's
the outside noise.
yeah, what's going, what do you think I should do? Or, what would you do if this? Because is, what they would do is not what you would do because they're not in love with the person that you're in love with, right? So you have to really, like you said, you have to lock in and eliminate all of the noise that's going on around you and have those hard conversations between the two of you because there's a reason why you got together, right? And if between the two of you through a course of time you working together, you're either going to get back to that, right? Or you're going to or you're going to come to the agreement together that okay, we're at a place where we both feel the same way about
Okay. And the my last thought on this, man, is I feel like with everything, I mean, we in real estate, I'm in sales, and it's no different. It's a mindset, but I think you should always have your negotiables and your non-negotiables. And everybody that looks different for everybody. There's some things because of my upbringing and because of where I'm from, I'm not gonna tolerate it. But something, hey man, I can, brush it off. Right. And that looks different. But I think you have to set that expectation. Even inside your marriage. Like, okay, I can forgive this, I can do, I understand this is you. We don't see eye to eye on this, but this is what I'm not going to tolerate, and some things you could be flexible on because everything can't be this straight across the board.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing. Is like every relationship, you each person has their non-negotiable, right? And if we haven't gotten to that point yet, on the non-negotiable, then everything else, like, okay, let's work this out because we are two different people.
That's it,
right? And the other thing is that you change over time.
That's it.
I'm certainly not the same person I am today as I was when I was 22, 23 when I got married.
Right.
So, and, I look at younger, it's crazy. I look at younger people in relationships, and, like some of the conversations that they have, it's like, man, was I having that kind of conversation? I mean, it's not like it's not, they're talking about the stage that they're at in life right now.
Right.
Yeah, what's going on around them. And it lets me realize, okay, I have grown. I'm not where I used to be. But the reason why I chuckled is because yesterday, no, 2 days ago, I had a couple days ago, I had a settlement. And so I'm in the settlement, and the young girl, I'm representing the seller. And the other agents representing the buyer. We're in there talking. I'm asking her buyers, are they from the area? How did they get here? One of the buyers, the wife, she was pregnant, and she was like, when we found out I was expecting, we wanted to move back. And so they're talking, and then me and my seller are talking, and she's like, Sean, what year did you graduate? And I told her what year I graduated, and the other agent heard me and she chuckled, and she was like, I don't mean to make, I don't want to say this, and I don't want you to take it the wrong way. I want you, to feel old. She's like, but that was the year I was born. I was like,
oh, welcome officially to the old age.
I'm like, yo, it's crazy because when I got into real estate, that was me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I heard somebody say what year they graduated. I was like, that's what year I was born. And so it's like, man, how much time? But I'm also thankful to be, to be able to be where we are, where I am now in my career. But like to tie into that the real estate thing, one of the things that is important, because these are young buyers, is like the importance of appreciation in home values and inflation, like where we are now. And so I was looking at a podcast the other day, and the guy was like, he'd rather have to be worth something, to be worth a certain amount of numbers. So like his assets all add up to be, let's just say $10 million, than to have $1 million in the bank.
Yeah.
right? And so like I thought about that and I was like, yo, that's right. Because at $10 million in the bank, or if you're getting $10 million cash, you're getting taxed on that.
Uh-huh.
You get $10 million. But if I sold a property and then I bought another property, right? Or I bought a couple of different properties and the equity in those properties continue to go up, at some point in time, let's just say I bought, you know, 100,000, $100,000 houses. Well, that's $1 million worth of homes. But when they appreciate to $200,000, now I got $2 million worth
Mhm.
worth worth of equity, you know, in those
Of course.
homes, that I can get access to at any point in time I want by getting a loan.
So it's no benefit of having liquid assets as opposed to having those investments in the real estate.
So I would say anybody who is worth, I would say, a substantial amount of money,
Mm-hmm.
most of their wealth is tied to an asset. So not necessarily real estate, right? But it could be a business. You know, the richest people in the world are that not because they got $100 million in the bank. The asset that they own is worth that much money. So if they sell it,
Mm-hmm.
when they sell it, now they have that money, right?
Mhm.
And you know they have that liquid cash. But and it's not until they sell it that they actually had that amount of money. Up until that point, it's tied to an asset that is continuing to appreciate. And when it appreciates, it travels along the same path as inflation, right? So, like if you have $1 million worth of cash right now, I'm trying to think of an easy way to say it. So if I bought a house for $1 million 10 years ago, right? And I took another $1 million and I just put it in the safe deposit box. And I go back 10 years later, that asset that I bought is worth $5 million.
Mm-hmm.
That $1 million I put in the safe deposit box, it's still only $1 million.
Uh-huh.
So that's the importance of it being tied to an asset, because as as inflation goes, I mean, you're always going to have some type of inflation going. Whatever asset that you own, whether it be a business, whether it be stocks, whether it be, like ETS,
Mm-hmm.
um, real estate, all of those things are going to appreciate, and you get the benefit of that inflation and that dollar, whatever dollar you invested at that time, increasing over that same amount of time.
That's right. So it's important to invest your money in the right places because you're using the word appreciate, and on the opposite side, you had to depreciate.
Mhm.
And I thought my boy, Bang Bangs, would you say guns and butter? You got guns and butter, man. So
Right.
you got, and a lot of times, I mean, you see, you can invest. Well, it's not even an investment in a lot of the butter. You know what I mean? The cars, well, I'm not gonna say jewelry though, because a lot of jewelry. I know I'm saying it wrong. I'm tongue tied, but yeah, but a lot of that could be an investment depending on the value, because a lot of them that's down like, because I watched Floyd Mayweather, man. I seen him talking, and some of those watches, people be like, it's outrageous that he would own a watch, but that watch is the same as having a condominium, I guess. And some of the price wise, and it's diamonds, and it's not going to depreciate anywhere. So if he's, I mean, would that be considered
Uh,
or investment?
Only if you got insurance on it. What happens if you lose the watch?
Same thing
With the house.
with houses and
Yeah,
real
yeah.
estate. That's
Yeah,
really
so only if you got it, only if you got the insurance on.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that because there might be some people out there that got a lot of jewelry, spent a lot of money on it, but what I mean, if you lose it, if you go out and somehow the class breaks
Mhm.
and you lose it, that money gone, right? If you don't have no insurance on it. But if you get a third party to verify its value, and then you get insurance on it. If you lose it, you then file a claim, and you get that, yeah, and you get not what you paid for,
Oh no,
but
the
the appraised value.
I did purchase pieces of that. Well, I've been triple right from the start.
Right.
And you get your certified card, and you call your homeowner's insurance or whatever. Say, hey, I got this, and they compute that amount. And then, again, I was saying that the real estate, of course, I'm a firm believer in real estate. That's the ultimate retirement plan and everything. But it's a lot of ways that you can invest for to watch your money, appreciate
Yep,
it.
yep.
And sometimes, real estate, that's everything on the book. So I think a lot of the um, when you get to a certain level, I think a lot of them put that money in other places
Mhm.
just so it cannot be, seen and
Right.
tax purposes, things like that. But we're not on that level. So I don't think we got that to worry about.
Yeah.
But so do you see like where the market is at now? Do you see that appreciation happening at a fast rate for his people, for his equity?
No, no. That's rates. It's crazy because a couple weeks ago, about a month ago, they lowered the actual federal rate, and then the actual interest rates that you borrow when you borrow money for a house actually went up. So they was at maybe 5.5%
Mhm.
about a month ago. Now it's at 6.7. So
Yeah.
you know that that being in that range, I think anything over 6% is going to cause appreciation to be a much slower thing.
Mhm.
And in real estate in general, anywhere from 1 to 5% a year is a healthy range. When 2022, 21, I'm sorry, 2020, 2021, and 2022, there was an increase of like 40%, 40 to 50% year over year each year. Right. So a house was worth almost twice what it was going into 2020.
Mm.
And so that's not healthy,
Mhm.
right? For appreciation to happen that way because it prices a lot of people out of the market. And so, when you have rates up at that price point, the people that were buying those houses at 2 and 3%, when that percentage is double, the payment doubles.
Mhm.
Right. So you might be able to get that $400,000 house and only have a $1,500 payment. Now that $400,000 house is going to come with a $3,200 payment. Right. So it's not a lot of, what I mean, it takes a lot of the buyers out of the market,
Oh yeah.
when the rates are up that high. But as far as appreciation, I think I think everybody will be fine. I don't see anything that could happen in the near future that will cause some kind of depreciation, like we had during the financial crisis.
So what about this election, or do you feel that is important to look at when considering the housing market, considering, pretty much everything. So this election is a big one, like all elections are. But what are some of the key factors that you're looking at?
So, like, I think, and man, I honestly think in this election, it's the first time that I've been hearing how important the black man vote is. Right? Typically, like Barack Obama, with Hillary when she was running against Donald Trump the first time,
Mhm.
with Bill Clinton. With the Democrats, they always rely heavily on the black female vote. And just over the last couple of years, I think black men have gotten more in tune with the process
Mhm.
and understanding if you don't like how things are being run, then you need to be involved in that process
For sure.
of making the laws and passing the bills that govern your state, that govern your county, that govern our nation. And so, I think it's, and I think the thing is that stands out to me is that, like for me, there's some things that I agree with as far as a Republican view, and then there's things that I agree with as far as the Democrat view. And I think, the crazy thing is that everything has been so divisive, over the last, last few years that, people aren't able to have a conversation and be able to agree to disagree. So like I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's on the opposite party than me, and it was like, well, how do you feel about let's just say a hot topic, abortion, right? And and with your faith and your belief, and it's like, okay, well, with my faith and my belief, I believe we were all given the choice, right, to choose whether we wanted to believe that or not. That's what governs my life, right?
Okay.
So do I have the right to force somebody to agree with my beliefs? And there's options that are there that already exist where if you know uh, you know if a mistake was made or a wrong decision, you have, to me, um you got birth control, and then you also have plan B,
Yeah.
right? And so plan B is the same thing. It's the same thing. You think you may be pregnant, but you're taking this pill to make sure you're not pregnant. Is that not the same thing? Right? And so do I have the do is it my do I have the authority to tell a woman no, she can't do that? No, I don't think I do. And so, like, that's one thing. Another, I said another thing comes down to, is there, like, fair fair access to capital, right? Most most like most venture capitalists, the money and stuff that they use are from pension funds, you know, and most pension funds are with unions, and most unions are made up primarily of minority, minorities, because it's working class jobs, right?
Right.
And but yet, when it comes to the funding side, we get less than 1% of the money that gets lent out for people to create businesses and things like that.
Right.
Right. And so, like, to me, that's always been that capitalist view has always been a part of kind of the Republican Party. And I feel like the flip side to it is, okay, well, who's gonna who's going to make the law or change the law that allows for that giant pool of money that you guys are using to fund all of these next companies, to make sure that that money doesn't represent a portion of the people of money who you use.
Right.
So if the people, if the pension is made up of 40% minorities, right, and you're using that pension to make loans to other businesses, why can't 40% of minority businesses be lent money to instead of just 1%?
Absolutely.
Right. And so, like, that's something that's ingrained and systematic that nobody is, nobody's talking about.
Kind of turn the blind eye to it.
Turn a blind eye. And you take, like, the middle class, and it's like it's getting smaller and smaller. Like, you got people who worth $100 billion, like $1 billion almost now sounds like $1 million. And then you got people who have nothing.
It's a huge gap.
It's a huge gap.
Yeah.
And then, the people who have everything
benefit.
Right? And so, those are a couple of the things. Those are a couple of things that that I think about. When it comes down to making a decision. But I also feel like a lot of men who look like me are also, looking at other things that they don't like, or opportunities that they haven't had, and saying, okay, well, I've supported, this party for this long, and this I'm still at the same place. You know, Maybe if I support this party and tell them what my expectations are, and and we can be the reason why they get elected, And then if they don't deliver, we take our vote back, right? We're at a time now where we have an opportunity to be influential and make a difference. And I think men are seeing it and taking challenge.
I said now, and I've said it for years, and I mean we all know this, but everything you describe, it starts on the local level.
Mhm.
And getting that involvement is always great, you know, when around this time. But even being involved on the local level and having an understanding of what's going on, right, you know, in the legislation that's going on in right in your area, because that's where these are the people that are going to be placed, you know, in a position to speak for us. But I feel like a lot of us aren't involved enough. Like I said, involved enough on the local level. I'm just going to leave it there because I feel like, okay, it's easy to go out and vote now and just say, okay, I'm voting this party, I'm voting this party. And if you haven't really showed up on the local levels, it's very, I don't think it's a reasonable expectation to think your voice is going to be heard, you know, now just by going out and say, okay, I'm going to place my vote. I mean, yes, you got to do your part.
Mhm.
But I think you have to educate yourself along the way too, because I don't think it's cut and dry. I don't think Facebook can make the decision for you. I don't think, you know, like you said, your friends can't make that decision for you because everybody is at different life stages. And
Right.
but yeah, I think it's a powerful time for us to kind of shift some of we can shift and be a little more influential. So I encourage everybody to get
Go
out.
vote. Go vote. Go
Yeah,
vote.
but
And it's important, like, and what you just spoke on is probably one of the most important things is realizing that, one of the most, the, people think about, senators and congressmen, but really, 50 of the most important people are the governors in each state, because you figure, they, dedicate funds to each state, and the governor, allocates those funds based on what the legislators in that state say, so then that's why it's important for you to get involved at the local level. If you live in city limits, get involved, with your city council, because they they legislate, the laws for the city, right? So if you have something, let's just say there's a fine for if your grass is 5 inches tall, we'll send you a warning for one time. If you don't cut your grass, we're gonna cut it for you, and it's gonna cost you $250.
mhm.
Right? And so those things are made at the local level, right? And so if you're involved in that meeting, you hear something like that come up, like, well, hold on for a second. What if somebody, doesn't have a job? What if somebody got laid off and the choice between cutting the grass and paying the electric bill? And now you going by there and you're cutting the grass, and now they got another $250,
Right,
fine or whatever that can build up. And it's just like bringing, because what happens is you have a lot of people that are in those spaces that um, you have a lot of people in those spaces that share the same views, right? So if you bring somebody on who has a different perspective, now you have a more rounded conversation.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, no, we can't just go in this direction because all of us feel this way because we have two or three people over here who are rejecting, or can actually persuade those people in the room to look at it a little bit differently. That's why it's so important to have
Important to
people.
show up.
Yeah, it's important to show up and have and have representation there. Like I always say, have a seat at the table, but they really don't understand. A seat at the table where? A seat at the table in the city. Yep. Seat at the table in the county. Yep. Seat at the table at the state level. Yes. What I mean? Your governor. Yes. And then nationally. So like, and that's how because the people that you elect from your state are the people that go to the at the federal level to represent you.
Mhm.
Right. And so if you're not happy with the way that things are going at that level, then elect people from your state and locally that can, you know, deliver on what you expect from them.
Okay, and so if you're somebody who's not well versed in politics. You don't really know what's going on, but you said, you know what, I want to do my part and get out. I want to vote. Maybe even if it's your first time, what would you advise them on their process? Like,
So, if they want to vote, I say this day and age is the easiest to be able to gather the information. So, any sign that you might see riding around, Google that name. All of them have
Mhm.
websites, right?
Mhm.
All of them have websites that were made for their campaign. They will show you. They will list on there the things that they believe, or that their principles, right?
Okay.
And their objectives, the things that they want to accomplish. And then you just go through that list and you see how they align with what your values are,
Right.
and then you make a decision based off of that. I think the whole political process would be a lot more simpler if they took the party affiliations off of it, but it's too much money being made, to do that. Because really, if you thought about it, you said, okay, I, I'm I have your criteria, I have what you say you represent,
Mhm.
and so I'm gonna vote for you based off of how I align with what you're telling me you are,
Mhm.
right? And then and just like in a relationship, if you tell me you one thing and then you do the total opposite, okay, well, this ain't gonna work, right? And so then I find, then what happens? I elect somebody else, right? That I feel like aligns with what I want. But if you do deliver, guess what? You got my vote again.
So, what about the folks that, just as you described, are burnt out and feel betrayed? Because so many times, this, okay, I do vote. You showed me this one thing. I mean, student, okay. One of the biggest things was the student loan
Mhm.
forgiveness. That was one that, I mean, really generated a popular, a vote, and it didn't go the way some people did get the forgiveness, but it didn't go the way that it was proposed.
Right.
So the same people that's coming back this year say, man, why should I trust anything that these politicians say? I'm just gonna stay home and not vote because it doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, if you feel that way and you did vote, imagine how you're gonna feel if you didn't vote and you just getting, it's you just being told what to do. And you don't have a say. It is your right. And the other thing I would say is just to understand that it's a process, right? Understand that this whole thing's a process. It didn't happen overnight,
Mhm.
right? So it's certainly not going to change overnight, but it's the small steps. And I think this conversation that we having now, a lot of people are having focusing on the national level, but really where you can see the most impactful and effective change is locally. Right around your zip code where you live at, in the county that you live in.
Absolutely. Man, I know one law that I would love to see. And I hope they're working on something. I think I heard that before, but just the accessibility, man, with the mobile phones and everything now. Man, it's so many different this year, so many platforms that are catered toward kids and young people that have like sexual content and things like that. And I think it has to be a better way to get in and regulate those spaces
Mhm.
and put some safety. I mean, and I think that has to be done. It has to be a legislation because it's too accessible.
Yeah.
And it's like, as a parent, as a teacher, I know teachers see it. I mean, these kids, man, they saying things now and hearing things just by scrolling that should not
Should
pop,
be. It should pop up.
shouldn't pop up. So I mean, I would love to see something worked out because it's a rabbit hole.
And with all of the technology and stuff that we have, I mean, I think if it's one thing that politicians can come together on, is is children, children, right?
Right.
And some aspect, because there's some other things, there's other things as far as children and what they're teaching them in school. What I mean, in schools that I don't necessarily agree with, um, but the technology is there that if they wanted to, I mean, you think about it in China, they don't have access to a lot of stuff. Like they don't even have access to the same TikTok that we have over here, right? they they can monitor how much time an adolescent can spend on the phone. Now, I would say, okay, that's something that the parents should do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But them as a government, they're saying, no, we're not going to have our kids on these devices for 6 hours a day, right?
Right.
You know, you're gonna get 40 minutes in the morning, and you get 40 minutes in the evening. Whatever you can't do, get in the book, right?
Oh yeah.
Or do something constructive. And so, I think that's something that certainly, if the agenda was to do that, it's something that could happen absolutely pretty fast. But again, it's like who's who's really controlling it? Is it the politicians, or is it the lobbyists and the big businesses behind it, right?
Oh yeah.
Because if you take away the screen time, now how are we gonna make money selling the ads when kids can't be on the phone? I can't show these new toys or this concert or whatever is happening. So now it's a revenue thing, and now it becomes an issue for them. And if you do that, now I'm not going to support your campaign. You know what I mean? So it becomes a much larger issue. But on the fact of what they actually have access to is how I don't think anybody's thinking about how intrusive that is on their mind and on the perception of what a relationship is, what sex is, and what lingering effects that has as they transition into adulthood.
Absolutely. I mean, everything I think is so sexualized now that it kind of desensitize you to the aspect of monogamy or falling in love with somebody. It's all about the pleasure aspect of it. And like you said, you figure if you start this unhealthy appetite at a teenage level, you carry this into adulthood.
Right.
So now you become addicted, or you're in a web of pornography or what. Yeah, well, call it what it is. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, there's so many people are caught in that, and then it's long lasting effects on the relationship, because I mean, there's a lot of relationships that either husband or wife can't live up to the expectation of what is being shown on these screens. And then you have people that have dealt with these issues, and at some point or some level say, okay, I conquered it, and now it's in your face. I mean, it's no reason I should be looking up a restaurant
Right.
or what I mean, and all of a sudden this is what's popped up on my phone. You know what I mean? It's
Like
like
you misspelled the word. trying trying to spell one word and autocorrect or something, switch the word up on you and you hit search and it's like, oh, yeah.
yeah. And then you know, after a while, it leads to, like I said earlier, they're going down that rabbit hole, man. And then you look up half the day, there's so many, and it's like I said, it's something that it's not talked about a lot, but it's an issue for a lot of people. And that issue actually goes back to what we was talking about earlier when we was talking about toxic relationships and things like that, because that's one of the things about being honest.
Right.
You have to look at yourself, male or female, and say, man, is this blocking my view of what my relationship should be, because I want this fantasy that I'm looking at 24/7.
Right. And it also warps your thought of what an actual relationship and what actual sex is, right?
Mhm.
Because you think about it, if you play basketball and all you do is watch NBA, you watching the NBA all of the time, or let's just say you're a novice basketball player and you watch NBA all of the time. You would think like I'm supposed to be able to play like eventually I'm supposed to be able to play like that.
Right. Uh-huh.
Right? Because everybody I'm watching can dunk, tween heavy, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
But not everybody has that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like, that's what that's what you think is how everybody's supposed to be. And it's in porn, it's the same way. It's just like everybody's not like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? What you actually seeing is people who getting paid a profession. So you think they're gonna bring the worst people or that and put them on screen, or they're gonna try to find the best that they can find and put them on the screen.
Right.
And then you take the emotion, you know what I mean? And you take the emotion out of it. And then you get desensitized because you see these images all over again. And nobody tells these young kids, okay, what at some point in time you can be in your 30s and 40s, and what if you didn't look at that stuff, what you had great in front of you with your partner should be enough to get you aroused to be able to do what you need to do. But now, because you got all of these other pictures in your head of, oh, she's not doing this, ain't doing ain't doing that.
Mhm.
Oh, well, man, I bet I could. And now it's just like you comparing something where if you never looked at it, whatever you had, you'd be able to, and you'd feel more comfortable having that conversation and expressing it. Like, hey, why don't we try something a little different? But now you stuck, and now you having to rely on some other substance to help you get to where you should be able to get to naturally. Then the progression from that is now you can't do it without that. Now your confidence is low, you know what I mean? Because you can't perform the way that you want to. And nobody talks about that domino effect of what happens just because you're looking for a quick thrill
Quick thrill. That's
on the phone.
so. Is there a healthy dose of it though?
Nah.
As a man, as I mean, and some people say, hey, you know what? We're gonna use this to spice up something, man. And what they agree on it, and they say, okay. Do you feel now that there is a healthy dose, or do you feel like opening that portal?
It opens it up.
It just opens it all together.
Yes.
So with the constant diet of, I mean, the music is portrayed.
Mhm.
The videos is portrayed. I mean, commercials is portrayed. And now you have, like I said, it's right there at your fingertips. How does somebody that struggles in these areas, how would you advise me even start to, combat it? Because it's there at the fingertips. Even when you're not thinking about it, it's there.
Yeah. So you have to have something that you have to want it, right? And so therefore it's got to be something that you want more, right? Um, rather it's you want more of your time, right? You want more because even
How much time you putting into it? No, yeah,
I mean, I don't know, man,
wow.
but because it can, just like any other thing that starts off as uh, um, a little pleasurable, can turn into an addiction.
It can consume. Yeah, yeah.
It can turn into an addiction. Um, and you know, and so then the other thing is, kind of what's guiding because is that adultery, right?
Hmm.
And if you're not married, is that what I mean? Is that fornication? And because thought behind all of it is kind of is the same thing, right?
Hmm.
And so really it's just you have to, the only thing I can think of, is just you have to want something more or something better,
Hmm.
for yourself, and you have to deny yourself. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Self control, denying yourself, and even changing your outlook on how you view the opposite sex.
Mhm.
Because most, not all, but most people, you have a mom, you have a daughter, you have, you know, um, family members, and you don't want them objectified in that way or look at them. And when you can start to look at just the opposite sex in a different way, I think you can take some of the power off of it. And then also starting to have the way you look at yourself. Like you say, self control, man. And I think I've talked to a lot of guys. I mean, a lot of guys who deal with it. I walked up to a brother, man, and he was at the store. In fact, no, we didn't walk up to him. It was my wife and I this week. We was at the store. We pulled up. Guy had the DVD player sitting in his car. Man, he was playing porn right there at the store. Like, he didn't have enough self control. And I didn't notice that. My wife noticed. She's like, that guy sat right there, is playing it. I said, man, he got it bad.
Yeah, that's great.
But when you talk to a lot of these guys, they place the blame. It's like it turns into a blame game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's not doing this, or if she would do this, and
But where did that thought and idea even come of what she should be doing?
why not? What is going on in your bedroom enough?
Right. Yeah. What have you seen that you like? Well, if she did that, well, if you ain't seen nobody do that, if nobody done that to you before, you know what I mean? You don't have no
Where did the desire come from,
yeah,
right?
yeah, you don't have nothing to compare it to. Comparison can be the thief of joy.
That's it.
You know what I mean? And that's the other thing is like you might be okay with the way you look, what God blessed you with, and then all of a sudden, I mean, there's always a guy taller. You know what I mean? There's always a woman smaller. And so that it can lead to a lot of self doubt. And then the other thing, to for your question that you said a while ago, was something that they could do is when that is at the forefront, um, and that begins to guide how you pick your relationships, you're not picking it on a good foundation to begin with. Because at some point in time, if you're lucky enough, you're not going to be having sex like that. Right? And what happens when the sex goes away? Do you really even like this person? You know what I mean?
Right.
Is this somebody who you really want to be, that you really want to spend time with if you can't have sex? Is this person your best friend? Right? Because when it comes down to it, if you want to build something in life that is, a good relationship, marriage, that you're able to guide and lead your children, that you can be, effective in your community. It starts with kind of the peace and the stuff that you have at home, which starts with the partner that you choose, right? So if you lead in first with, and that's why it's important, like for to stay abstinent as long as possible, because now that's not a guiding factor into why you're making the decision to be with this person. It's not because you guys have you know great sex, and that kind of got you to where you were. It was more of like the connection, the connection that I had with this person, um, the way that we look at life the same way, the way that we want the same things out of a relationship, the way that we want to raise our children. When sex isn't the reason why you're making the decision to be with this person, it kind of goes back to the first conversation, well, one of the first part of this conversation, where you're in a toxic relationship. You know what I mean? Because you might be in a toxic relationship because you was attracted to the wrong thing going into it. Right.
I mean, just on the opposite side of the coin,
Mhm.
and I know there's a process and the way things are supposed to happen, but sexual compatibility is a major,
Yeah.
it's a major thing, and you don't get that off of looking visual or off a conversation. You only get that by experiencing and actually committing the act. And we know everybody have different belief systems, but we believe that it's supposed to go a certain way.
Right.
But a lot of people don't believe in that concept because nobody ever went and purchased a car off the lot without test driving it.
Well, I'm not saying that doesn't play a role in it, but don't allow it to play the main role.
Yeah.
Right? That can't be the main role. You know what I mean? Because when that's gone, let's say, okay, what are we doing? What else do we have? What else do we have? Do we really, how else do we really connect other than connect?
Oh yeah.
And so I think that just, again, it can lead to uh, uh, an unhealthy, relationship.
Yeah, we're gonna need a part two on that, man. I would love for anybody that's out there, if you're watching, if you're listening, chime in, let us know. I mean, because like I said, it's a lot of people that deal with a lot of issues, and our main goal is to kind of talk through it all. I mean, we don't have all the answers, but I'm sure it's people out there with some experience, and that can, you know, uh, give us some good insight. So we look forward to it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. This conversation kind of went, a little bit all over the place tonight, but and we talked about some stuff today that we don't even have really experience. It's more of our point of view from my life experiences. So some of it, some of the things is actually the things that we got to think through, ourselves. But we this is the conversation that we had, So basically, what you're doing is, you getting the bird's eye view or sneak peek of, him calling me on the phone one night, talking about one thing, and an hour later, we done talking about 5, 6 different things. Like, oh man, we got to get off of here, man. So, we just appreciate everybody that's been tuning in, that's been watching us. And again, just comment in the videos, or after the video's over with, if you watching this, and you think it's something that you'd like to hear more on and touch on, or if you don't agree, put that in. Maybe we'll bring you on, and you can talk to us, give us your perspective and your point of view, because by no means do Troy and I have all of the answers. We just want to, have a platform that we can have these type of conversations, agree, and sometimes agree to disagree.
That's it.
And but you guys get the benefit of that. So, Troy, you got anything else you want to add?
Now, that's everything, man. Just continue, man, to like, hit the link, subscribe,
Yeah.
and stay tapped in.
All right.
Stay tapped in.
Peace.